yet.
No, I do not.
For another productive reason.
Go out like,
I might be a double insurance on it too.
go out like Roy.
Yeah, exactly. How you doing? You ready?
Pardon me?
Good? Right, you good?
Okay. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Planning and Zoning Board. Today is October 14th. It is now 1:03 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Chairman Sean Poole,
Here.
Member Randy Stout,
Here.
Member Lori Simpson,
Here.
Member Michael Perez,
Here.
Member Ronald McDonald,
Here.
City Attorney Nancy Meyer.
Here.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Give me 1 second, guys. Maybe. Okay. First, we will discuss, is there any conversation or questions or concerns regarding the minutes from the Planning and Zoning meeting on the September 9th? If not, I will entertain any motions.
To approve the minutes, October 9th.
Have a second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Fantastic. All right. We're going to ask if there's any questions to the general public, besides the fact there's really nice new chairs there. So they're either laying down in the general public. Well, we do have a member of the general public here. He just has a different chair. So, okay. Any comments from the board regarding anything you want to open up before we get into what we're talking about today?
I had a question,
Sure.
if you don't mind. And I don't know if it's allowable or not, or if we're getting structured. We got approached by Mr. Grimaldi.
Okay.
And he's talking about wanting to put up like, I don't know, 14 to 60 units right there where the restaurant is next to Hooters.
So for those that don't know, Mr. Grimaldi he's a developer, commercial real estate broker.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was wondering, if we're really going to make this a show place similar to John's Pass, how can we go ahead and structure it so that all that property along the edge where we want to put the Riverwalk is going to be used for retail or restaurants and not block it off again with more condos?
So the short answer to that is we've already kind of addressed that in the Waterfront Overlay District. So the district itself will allow for certain usage. And I think there's a maximum, and Eric probably knows as well, there's a maximum on residential units in there anyway.
WOD is 15 units per acre.
So, and usually when we do that, the way that the overlay district was designed originally, because we discussed it 20 years ago, 15 years ago, was it was supposed to be flex space, basically work-live space. So we wanted condos in the upper story units and then restaurants and retail and everything else in the lower units. But the nice thing is it still no matter what he wants to do, he's going to have to bring it to, do we have an overlay board anymore?
Not you all.
Just us, right? So we have to have conversation with them, and we can kind of help guide that process through that. And of course, council will have the final say. But yeah, so it's a great question. It's designed that we were supposed to be able to have that as to be able to mix the two together. I'm kind of curious where Burke's going to lie anyway. He's going to max his out where he's at.
So we created sorry to interrupt, but we created a new district that includes the WOD and the old trailer park lot on 19. I forget the name of it, but there's new land use there that if you have 5 acres or more, you can come to the city with a PUD and ask for additional density up to 40 per acre or 2.0 FAR. But again, you have to have 5 acres to start that conversation based on our PUD rules.
So there's not.
But there's any way we can go ahead and adjust it where that front portion, the river portion, is designed so we can have a John's Pass type place or a Dunedin type area and not stick more residential right there on the water?
Well, I mean, that was the purpose of the overlay district initially, was to kind of attract that type of buyers and developers anyway, and
Was it
not
mixed
and not
use?
mixed use and
Yeah.
not so much residential. So it was designed to be mixed use, and if there was residential, it was going to be upper level stuff above restaurants, shops, ice cream shop, whatever kind of thing. It would be retail, whatever kind of there was. So that's kind of in place already. Now I don't. And one of the two, you may answer this question. I'm not sure if there's been modifications to the last reiteration of that. About, was it 5 years ago? I think the last one was.
Yeah,
Overlay?
there's not being changed. I'm aware of.
Yeah, it's been probably a good 5 years, right?
But as of right now, though, to your point, though, is as of right now, if they stayed within 15 units per acre, and they had an acre along the waterfront there,
1.3.
They can build a 15-unit condo.
right? So that, and there's nothing that we can do to, like, that could put a complete block on the idea of a river walk, because there wouldn't be any kind of space there. I think what you're saying is should we be looking at the concept of, in the waterfront overlay district, should we put something in the code that says that if you're going to, anything that you're putting there has to have a minimum setback from the waterfront that can be used for waterfront egress? You know, like, do we need to look at the code in some way to say, hey, we want to make sure that there's always, we did it with the PUD. We did it with the PUD to make sure that we knew that we could go in and say, hey, you're going to create a green space so that people have a walkable space. We're going to require that. We let them know ahead of time. We're going to require that. That needs to be in your plan. Right now, if we don't have that, and they only have an acre, they have less than 5 acres, and they come in and they want to build, they have a setback minimum from the waterfront, but there's absolutely nothing that forces them to allow city walk along the water. You know, that forces us to let people pass through that space. If we're going to create a boardwalk environment, we would need to make that part of the waterfront overlay district zoning, that anything built on the water there has a minimum setback of X from the waterfront, and that there's some form of verbiage for a granted easement for public passage in the first 10 feet.
I
or
think there was
whatever it is.
discussion about an easement in the original one, the last one. You're right, it's probably been like 7 or 8 years since we did that. It would be worth looking into again as we start to develop that, and that's a good call. We should probably verify that that's in place. I know there was discussion of an easement because originally there was the discussion that the boardwalk would be made out of vinyl and made all the way around like a pier almost. And
But then we're dealing with
correct,
Army Corps.
it changed the entire.
So when you step outside the seawall and you build something, now we're talking about an Army Corps lease in the waterfront
Right.
that runs around, which would, I think it would be simpler to create a methodology in our code that simply says that you've got a 20-foot setback from the seawall and you have to allow 10 feet. You know, the city has right to an easement along the waterfront there for public ingress egress along the waterfront, so that we can facilitate this. What we're talking about is a grand plan, right? The waterfront overlay district was supposed to be a grand plan for one visually consistent build, even though you're going to have multiple.
And is that something that you want to predate? So, you know, part of our waterfront overlay district now says, you know, within 2 years you will adopt this, or you will come into conformance with this. Is that the type of verbiage you want it to say? You know, that's something else you need to think about. As of this date, you know, moving forward, the city will, you know, and go forward with that. Yeah, because right now it doesn't have that in there.
No, and we have several pieces of property that are on there that are now already built on the water line. So, I mean, Hooters is right on the water. So, and then we have, I think, so it's, you know, there's a little room around.
But the
Whiskey Joe's.
Whiskey Joe's has it, kind of. They could, and it doesn't even have to be something where where we're going to go through and change their look, right? It just needs to be something in the verbiage that says that there's going to be an allowable ingress egress path, from across their property at the water line, including up to 10 feet, so that they can keep their look. It's Whiskey Joe's, and you know they pass on to that, but we're effectively saying if you want to develop down here, that's fine, but you have to give us.
Well, ideally, they'd want that access anyway, right? Somebody's going to park at X location and walk through. Like, oh, let's stop and have a drink at Whiskey Joe's.
But you would think, right? But this was kind of the discussion when Mr. Burke was talking about what he was talking about was, the city residents were like, you want to build out our waterfront, and we had to bring up at that public meeting, it isn't your waterfront.
Right.
It's privately owned right now. You have no access to it unless you're patronizing those restaurants.
Correct.
You don't have access to that waterfront. What we want to do is facilitate building you access to the waterfront, but it needs to be something that's consistent. And the only way we do that is by putting it in the code so that we have a consistent path across that.
So, Nancy, you might want to add on this. So, I don't believe that we could put an easement in without it's private property. So we'd have to negotiate that easement with the property owner for one. So we can't just by code arbitrarily take somebody's property.
Right.
Now we can change setbacks and whatnot going forward, where that would be in there, but it still would be private property. It wouldn't be ours to mess with, and we would have no control over what use happens on that.
Though, during that process, can we request that they incorporate some kind
Well,
of
so obviously
walkway?
in the planning process, especially if they're trying to access more density, if they had the 5 acres, you could negotiate that in. Hey, if you give us a boardwalk, we'll give you additional density. That's was the beauty of the construct we put in place, is it puts contractual obligation on that developer to, in order to get that additional density, they would have to provide those things that the city wants. So that's how you work through that. But just arbitrarily saying, hey, we're going to take the waterfront from you without doing some kind of eminent domain or type process, we couldn't do that.
Well, I think we'd have to incentivize it. It would have to be something that says, if you want to do X, you're going to do this, right? And it would have to be something that we would put in, because we can't just, hey, thanks, we appreciate that.
Well, you can still do eminent domain on that and take the 10 feet all the way through and have the city go ahead and take control of that 10-foot barrier. And if
But
you did that, then of course we'd be responsible for the upkeep and the maintenance. But now it's completely open to the public. That's similar to what Reddington Beach did with the beaches. They got all those houses up there, and the property lines, I know because I was out there asked to work on one, the property lines extend out toward to be inclusive of the beach area. But Redding Beach said, no, this is all open to the general public. You're going to have to allow this. And I just hate for us to lose the image that we're trying to build, because some developer decides he wants to go ahead and mess up our plans by putting something right there in the middle of it that we can't do anything about.
Well, I think the way it's written with the 50 units per acre, it's going to be cost prohibitive to do anything like that realistically. So I think that kind of in itself solves the problem. I mean, nobody's going to put a 15-unit hotel there, right? I mean, just would be cost prohibitive. It would be cost prohibitive.
No, but they could put 3 stories at 5 units each.
Again, they have to have
As long as we still keep the pathway open, so that, because we have this nice area that Ryan and his group were talking about developing, where Gill Dogs had that walk around right where the park is. Can you imagine we start here and move, and then all of a sudden we have to stop? And then what are we going to do? We can't get past this one unless we come all the way out to a parking lot and go back around and then try it again. It's going to kill the image we want.
That's the running problem with any kind of development like this, is that slowest man and last man standing are the ones that dictate completion of the entire overall idea. So, I mean, the idea is that we could make changes to the waterfront overlay district for things moving forward. So we can say, this is the plan, is that, it's your property, but we request pedestrian access through this space. It doesn't even really have to be an easement as much as it is, you're in the commercial district, it's public space that we're requesting. That's part of our code, is that you have to allow that flow from one side to the other in that outside 10 feet along the seawall. The problem with eminent domain, aside from the legal, just running Nancy through the ringer to try to fight that, is that if we do that, then we also probably inherit all of the dockage.
Correct.
Ocean side of that thing. So we inherit their seawalls. The city inherits their seawalls and inherits their dockage. And then there's a liability dispute of those are dockage for people to use those restaurants. Now they're crossing over that, but they're landing on city docks. They're not landing on private docks. We want them to stay private docks. We just want to figure out how to verbalize that in the code, so that we create And I think it can be done. I think it can be done by going through and offering something like, hey, look, we're trying to come up with one consistent look. As such, if you guys will agree to this and we can get this consistent passageway across there, maybe the city will put up the same light, the solar lights or something along the walkway paths or something like that. That way it solves two problems. One is that we get the walk lighting pathway that we want, and it's one consistent look. So we maintain that look. They get path lighting without having to pay for it, and they're giving up access across the space to do so. And then that way the front side on the road side and the water side have the same visual appeal. And that was a problem we had with city council a while back. Everybody was talking about path lighting around Treadway and down up and down those roads. And it's like, this is private property. It's not the city's responsibility to light this. That road doesn't even belong to the city. At the time it didn't. So it was like, you're asking the city to put up lights, but you're not giving the city anything in return. And so I think that's probably how we have to address it, is come up with, what are we going to give away? What can the city afford to give in place in order to effectively purchase that right across those pieces of property to purchase compliance?
Well, if we looked at it from a financial standpoint on their side, if they were smart and we proposed it to them, that pathway would give them another entrance for their restaurants all the way along the way. And if it's, let's say they do one for 20 feet, that gives them a 10-foot outside dining at the same time. We still have our path there. It just seems that if we're going to do a boardwalk, New Jersey type boardwalk or something, we got to have some continuity to make sure that the whole area does it. Now, we'll run into an issue with Whiskey Joe's because they put their private beach in. But I don't think that's going to be an issue either, as long as they have stairs to get up and go down on the other side of the beach, have that walkway go all the way through there.
And we have a couple of channels cut in that too, that are going to be something we have to think about. The marina obviously creates a roadblock. So the pathway is going to have to wind a little bit anyway. It's going to have to move through spaces. And we probably have easements alongside some of those properties that we can use for that pathway. But I agree with you. We need the continuity, and I agree, but I think it can't ride, if we're going to develop it, it can't ride on, this will be really good for you. You should let us do this, because it's going to bring people to you, because you're going to get the one guy that's going to buy the acre and he's going to put private residences in and he's going to put a fence up.
So I have a question. As a point of order, though, do we need to ask city council to?
I was going to
Thank you.
wait for my turn, and I was going to say, you have a good representative from city council that I think can bring this topic up with council if it's something they're interested in moving forward. My thought was to touch base with our planner, if council's interested in this conversation, to kind of get her idea on ways she has seen different areas. I'm looking at the Waterfront Overlay District, like how has she seen it drafted to try to get to the things you're talking about. So it's a good point. I think it needs to go to council to see if they want more.
Because I know when we reviewed
discussion.
It last time, several years ago, it was council put it back out that they wanted us to review it. So it's good to have discussion about it, and I'm glad you brought it up, because it's a very real problem moving forward, especially in that. I'm sure it's been something that's been discussed.
I'm happy to bring it up at council if the other representative here will.
Perfect.
So.
I will bring it up tonight to see if we can get that on your agenda to look at possible changes to WOD.
I knew they would list the stuff they want us to do, so it'd be a prioritization, obviously.
Yep.
So, all right, cool.
We'll be.
Does that kind of satisfy for now, Ron?
Yeah, I'm just.
We're going to put a pin in it.
Started.
Because I know I'm working with the plans.
Sure.
A number of people over there, and it's like, gee whiz, it'd be terrible if we're looking at putting $60 million into a project and then we have to stop because all of a sudden somebody wants to be arrogant about it and say, oh, no, you're not walking across my property. Then we're stuck.
Yes.
Chairman, can I ask something?
Absolutely.
Just a picture of what's being discussed at Boardwalk. Are we talking about on their first 10 feet of land or hanging off their water?
So that's been a question and issue in the past.
Like
So
the Tampa Bay Riverwalk, I think they did that after the fact. And so
because there's development already there. The original discussion we had years ago, I think Veronica brought it up like 8 or 9 years ago when we discussed it, was there are properties there that would have to encroach on the river the side of it. And Corps of Engineers was an issue in a conversation. Like for instance, Hooters is literally built on the seawall, right? So we'd have to widen the space where their docks are and walk around there, for instance, or do you walk in front of the building? There was multiple questions to ask that. I think it becomes a logistics problem that you have to discuss with the city and the council and see what they want. As far as the vision was concerned, in the very first rendering of that, and I remember it, I had it before the storms actually flooded everything away. The rendering went all the way around on the water line. So if it was a new property was built, that because Eric kind of incorporated that when he built Gildog, he made that space you could walk along the water line. And then they had the same question. Well, what do we do where Seaside is? What do we do where Hooters is? And it was to go out into the actual water spaces. And they were trying to get the property owners to have a conversation, but we see if they were willing to even kind of chip in and do that, which of course Seaside was like, you've lost your mind. We're not going to pay. We don't put our building together, let alone anything else.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to me to have that brought back up now, because from a large scale vision, it was designed so the residents and more importantly guests to our city would park and then walk down that place and then use restaurants and go to the shops and do all those things like that. And many of the business owners and the property owners thought it would be fantastic. Nothing ever came of it. So it's funny that it's coming back up now. And now we're in the midst of seeing permits actually start, being done. We have demo permits for, I think, Mr. Burke. Demo permits there, right? He's working on his permits. I saw silt fences going up. Yeah, so we're there. We just have to figure out how to make it happen.
And I think anybody that when you're talking to council, I think anybody that is, doesn't want to play, and puts up that roadblock, then we do use the easements that run between the properties to turn that walkway back out to the road, out to the common space, and then come back down the other side. But we fence it very specifically that forces traffic not to go into that person's property until they play. And that's pretty consistent. I've seen that in a lot of places where it's like, okay, but when traffic makes the turn here, you look like you don't want people. You don't want customers of any way. And if someone wants to build something residential, the likelihood is very low that they're not going to want a gate that gets onto the boardwalk in both directions to go through there. And if they're not willing to allow passage through, then the city doesn't allow them to have a gate into the boardwalk on their property. And that way we push that along to get that consistency all the way across the waterfront.
You get A or B, but not both.
Right.
Gotcha.
It seems like we could start off with something more simple, at least start off with changing the setback along the waterfront for any new construction. I don't know what it is now, but maybe make it 25 feet, and then that way, in any future plans you have, at least you don't have a new roadblock or somebody building something, because it's not going to be anything there. That doesn't address allowing the public there and all that kind of stuff, but I think that's a bigger hurdle to force that to happen.
Hooters, I know, is talking about putting a new building in when all this happens, and because they got flooded out on the last one. And if you're familiar with the Hooters over in Clearwater, it's on the second floor of an apartment complex, and it works very well. They've got first and second floor, and that's gives them a little more view at the same time. So they're talking that way right now, and I just get, I don't know, it's a feeling that Grimaldi's not looking at the overall picture when he's talking about what he wants to do with that restaurant and all. I mean, he doesn't want to be part of anything. He just wants his own little world over here. And if we're going to start on this side where Gildog's is, trying to go all the way around, now all of a sudden we got to stop. Unless we go like they did at John's Pass and do an elevated walk and just go up.
Why don't we do this? It sounds like the real concern is not necessarily the WOD, but more of the walkway initiative around the water. And so I'll bring up the council and see if we can get that process started to see if we don't have a way to do that and we don't have a person that's going to work with us. I will say that I've talked to several of the businesses down there, and they'd be very willing to try to accommodate that, as connect stuff together to make that happen. But if there was those that weren't, that we could possibly build out into the water, how we could kind of loop around and come inside. Like there's at Whiskey Joe's specifically, they bought that other that house next door, and I think they're going to put a wedding venue in there, so it'd be very difficult to walk through that, obviously, right?
Sure.
Event type venue where we might be able to put something out in the water to go around, and I think we could work with different property owners on that aspect. So maybe we pursue that to start those conversations, see what we need to do to actually make a connection all the way around.
Sure.
And then
Because originally there was even discussion about putting it under the bridge. Back in the very first rendering, back in like 20 years ago, and we have drawings showing it was going under the bridge, so we can include that side of the waterfront as well.
Just so you know, so that's still alive and well at the MPO. It's like number 6 on the unfunded project list. It's moved back up. Right now, it's in a right-of-way study acquisition on both sides to see what the city would need to acquire right-of-way wise to make that happen.
Okay.
But the funding is there on the MPO side to help that. So that's still very much alive.
The only problem with that, and I talked to the owner of that marina because I know him, is that all of his marina pretty much has access from a boat ramp that is right next to the bridge. So there's no way you could go and connect it and be able to get through his ramp there. That property is in terrible shape, especially after it got flooded.
I've always wondered the legality of that boat ramp on the east side of the river as well.
Yeah, there's ownership things that are cause problems, but he's very willing. I talked to him as well. He's very willing to work with us on that, and that's part of the right-of-way acquisition study is because the original plan actually dumped out and walked across that boat ramp onto Bailey or whatever that road is. So obviously we probably would still want to do that, and he'd be willing to allow some kind of controlled access, like shut it off so he could use it, and then when he's not using it, you can walk across there, put some gates or something up. But also we would turn traffic up along 19 as well to go up there and connect on the sidewalk. I think you really need both connections.
Right.
So that's all in the works to find out what exactly we need to make that happen, and then come back in some plans to acquire
Okay.
that.
So then you have a request from your board to talk to council this evening and see if they're interested in having us.
Yeah. Overall, obviously, we got to figure out what next park is a boat ramp, another issue to go across there. So there's a lot of things to make that happen. So we can start.
Are we going to allow the boat the boardwalk to now that Ryan has that Gildog property right there to go ahead and connect all the way and carry it all the way through the park?
Waterfront Park?
The boardwalk,
Oh, right in front. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, obviously that development, when we put plans together, that's part of the stuff we would have, you guys would have discussions with, we would have discussions with about what we want to see, all that connection.
So there won't be any objections to us including the park in that, because that makes a really nice nature walk. Then if we cover that whole little area, we're talking about a mile.
Yeah. There's even discussions of it, maybe we put a flyover the waterway there to get connection from the waterfront to the waterfront park. So, I mean, there's lots of things that obviously that we can do going forward, but also we need development to kind of start in order to kind of plan for that. So there's a lot of things up in the air.
Got the permit started right here. I mean,
That's a good start, yes.
you know.
Can I ask how far east you're envisioning? You talked about taking it under the 19 bridge.
So the overlay district extends all the way, believe it or not, all the way through
to Grand.
Not to Grand. No, where the
WD stops at 19.
Bailey stops at Bailey on the waterfront on Bailey. So
the WD includes the other side.
Well, the master plan included.
Right, WD doesn't. It stops.
the WD did not.
The
Right.
WD right now is just on the west side.
The future land use maps show
Yes.
all the way
The
to
future
Grand,
land
but no, it stopped right at Bailey, all the way up to basically right where the little restaurants are and stuff like that, where the one that burned down and all that. Right, that was where it was.
Crab Shack.
Yeah, Crab Shack, all the way to little I don't know what that place was called, the Italian sub shop that was there and that burned to the ground. And I think they're rebuilding. Are they rebuilding that? Yeah. So, yeah, right there, that whole street basically. But the future land use that all the way to Grand. Okay. All right. Well, we're going to put a pin in it then. All right. Moving forward. Any other questions, concerns, comments you guys want to bring up? Anything else we're going to put on the agenda? We don't have enough work to do already, Ron. Come on, keep adding stuff to us. All right, let's move it forward. All right, today we are going to discuss the amendments of the Water Overlay District. Miss Nancy, you are on board.
So you may remember that this came up when we were talking about the sign code, and you guys asked for some direction from council. So I took it back to council, and council has sent you some direction. So this is a proposed change to just the sign portion of the WOD. The ordinance is in your packet. And essentially, this is proposed language, so they're just looking for your review and recommendation. The direction I got was pretty much that the signage in the waterfront overlay district should follow the sign code. And so that is what this verbiage does. It strikes out the specific language that was in the WOD about signage and says follow the sign code. So if there's any comments or changes or curses or anything you want to throw at me, I will take that back.
So all the modified sign language we already worked with for the rest of the code.
Yes.
Which, so the rest of
Yeah, and so I should let you know that.
It
So
just
the council
stays
went through the sign code, did make a couple of tweaks to what you guys already did. They are waiting for me to draft everything and bring it back, which is a task, but I will get it done and bring it back to them for first reading, hopefully in the near future. And we're trying to keep this ordinance with that ordinance because they're kind of go hand in hand. So we don't want one to change and the other not to be ready to change. So all that's ready to go back to council. They just need your recommendation on this particular rewrite of 12755.
Do we have any plans for a monument style sign or something like they've done over in Newport Richey to welcome people to our new district?
No,
I don't think at this point and I think we're still waiting. I think what the mayor mentioned earlier, that the development needs to kind of get geared up before that. I will tell you, during the sign code workshops, there was a lot of talk about signs and different looks and different ways to, you notice the public, turn right here, turn left here. But as far as any specific plan, and I'll of course let the mayor speak, but I don't remember anything specific to this.
It's just like if we're going to have something like John's Pass, you really want something that has a name and people know they're welcome. Like when you go into Main Street of Newport Richey, they have some kind of acknowledgement that you're coming to someplace special, not just a bunch of places.
I think they had briefly discussed something like that, Ron, and it was discussed. It's certainly not something right now. We're trying to get development moving, but for the signs, I think that was discussed to be talked about.
And there was discussion about raising some money. So that's the biggest part, right? We need some tax base to be able to worry about spending up. That was a $750,000 sign that they put up there.
Didn't we want to specify that the signs in the waterfront overlay district would have to be similar to whatever the developer was envisioning? Because if one person wants a neon sign and another person wants like a wood natural sign, it's not going to look right in the new development.
So, and I'll respond to that because I did so much work on the overlay district stuff. There was discussion originally, and Eric, you weren't here for this. I think the only two of us is myself and Veronica. Originally, there was discussion that the initial vision of the city 20 some years ago when they had this conversation about the overlay district was that each one of the signs would be very, very similar. Remember, they had to have a certain style, they had a certain fit, but the problem we had with that was we couldn't disguise or figure out what exactly we were going to do. So it was like, well, are we doing a fishing village? Are we doing a Key West style? What are we doing? There was so we couldn't request any kind of continuity to the fact that we didn't even have an answer to give them. So because of that fact, I think we pretty much left it very, very blank in the overlay district design, right?
In our current WOD district, it was tiki-like village, fish village, shack type of style. And that was in our code. And that's what you're seeing down there, with the exception that over the years, you've seen some LED lights, you've seen some amplified lights, you've seen some people wanting scrolling lights. And I think that's what started the conversations with the sign code change, because it's so outdated, right. And to bring it up to date, people want to be seen from 19, and if you have a wood light, lights coming from the bottom, lights coming from the top, are you going to see that from US 19? Probably not. So that was what it was, right? And that's all that you could do. You couldn't do much. But now they're wanting to change it and update it, and they put a lot of thought into the sign ordinance to update it.
So by removing all these other stipulations, basically they have to be compliant with the sign code and ordinances you guys already suggested, and the council tweaked and then approved. So, or in the process of
So
approving. In the
you
process of
could
approving.
have somebody, a business with a neon sign, and then like a lodgy, woodsy type sign right next to each
Absolutely.
other.
According to the way it's written here, absolutely, you're 100% correct.
What, do you think that's going to look good? I don't.
I think the problem we have is, and the council's having to deal with, is the fact that we've never given it. We gave it a sort of a direction, and now our developers who are coming to us are saying that doesn't work for them. And do we try to redesign that sign code based off of what we're trying to keep as our design and feel there, and turn them away? I mean, we've been turning them away for 25 years. I'd rather see something actually get built finally. That's my personal position.
So I'm in a lot of towns now that are getting brand new signs because they all went away. And they're all getting rebuilt. Like, so Fort Myers Beach, where every building was destroyed, and they all are getting rebuilt. Some of them are getting rebuilt to look like they did before, just in modern materials, but they still look beach shack because it was a 50-year-old building. And their signage is done that way like it was before. So it looks almost like it's a hodgepodge, but then the way the area handled it was to do a monument sign that kind of was like one of those pointing to all the, and they did a single monument, and then they did signs that were all done by the same vendor, but they were done in the style of whatever that thing is to point to where it was. So like you knew you were going to the Crab Shack was the Crab Shack wooden looking sign, but it was all on one monument to be one consistent thing. So that, and I've seen that now in also a lot of the little, like Homosassa Springs, where I grew up, which was just trailer parks and old houses, is now almost exclusively Airbnbs. All of old Homosassa Springs is nothing but Airbnbs. And every juncture of every road is a pillar sign with the name of the cabin, with 23 cabin names, all in their own little hand-done signs, but they've put them on a single column. The column gives it the unity.
Oh, I see.
But now you're pointing out that you have a mix of all of these different businesses in this space. And then you turn down there and you have all these cool different new signs throughout the whole thing that are their own personality for their space. And then it looks, at least in Fort Myers, that what they've done is they've dictated things, like I was saying, with all of the street, all the little cute solar street lights are all consistent. So the walkway through this village is consistent. The pathway is consistent. But then when you get to the front gate of that restaurant, it becomes that restaurant's style. And then the next one's different. But you join it together in how you do the overall master plan, so that the feel becomes consistent, because you want those stores to have their own thing.
No, you want their individuality.
And so I think we're either going to have to go, okay, everything's one thing. And I don't know how many of you have been to places like that where the master plan for a whole neighborhood, all the restaurants and everything were thought out and everything's the same. And then all the signage is the same. And it doesn't really have any
with a franchise. We've got Hooters as a franchise, and if we're looking at a Starbucks or somebody else, and the rules, I know, read my book on franchising. The rules on franchising mean you're going to have to use the exact typeface, the exact color code, everything. So we can't really tell Hooters, oh, you're going to have a sign that looks like this so it conforms, because Hooters National is going to say, nope, not going to happen.
That's not Hooters National, though. Yes, it is.
No, that's a franchise right now, but Hooters
It's
is
not a franchise either.
Well, Hooters is negotiating to buy that. Hooters corporate is right now, because I was with Mike Stewart yesterday, and they were saying that the corporation is looking at taking that back over. So, if so, they're going to want their own typeface and their own sign the way it is. Yeah,
Well, that
I
has
think
lots
there's a
of
way to make it. I think there's a way to make it look consistent, that it's all part of this village, but let them have their identity. As long as we're, even if you just pick it at height, if the code, which you already have, code that kind of creates a consistency in height, overall size. So I mean, it's their sign, but they're not. You don't have a neon sign, and then they're all over the place. If they're fairly consistent, then it has that village feel. It's one consistent thing, but they each have their personality. And I think it makes it easier across the board if this one matches the other one. And then again, we do more with the Waterfront Overlay District. We do more with the pathway connecting.
Yeah, I agree.
These are individual
Mhm.
locations, but the path connecting them is our town, and they're part of that. Like this is their corner.
I think the attraction from 19 should be to the waterfront district, not to individual places.
Exactly.
Otherwise, we'd have 20 big neon signs out there
Yeah.
trying to shine on 19. So you just want to bring people to that
Yeah,
district.
I would say as it develops down there, the city is going to have an infrastructure piece as well. We're going to have roads, signage, lighting, and stuff that feed the area, and we would probably have some kind of signage that would direct. That's what the wayfinding stuff was about. Was what we have. But since we don't really have a whole lot going on there yet, once we have that, then we can start to work with in those developments where they're going to lay out, what's going to look like, where we might have an entryway sign or something. We can start looking at that. We would definitely do that from a city perspective. But also these individual businesses, as they put their individual business signs up, it's very hard to keep them all succinct in a certain motif, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah, but putting a road sign up is perfect. I don't know if you remember the development. It used to be down right next to the Clearwater St. Pete Airport. They had that big village back in there, and it was very eclectic with a whole lot of different vendors of all kinds down there. But they did the same thing you just said. They had their signs up, and their signs directed them to where this and that, just like they do in the shopping. So you knew exactly where you're going to go to Hooters. You know where you're going to go to Whiskey Joe's or wherever. And same thing with the lighting. As long as the city puts a decorative light pole up or something to give it some kind of atmospheric ambiance, we have more for that district than just a bunch of restaurants put over there.
So, Lori, since you brought it up, does that satisfy your question?
I understand it more.
Okay. Do you have any other discussion or a motion regarding what we have in front of us, Ms. Nancy has put together?
I will say, you bring up neon signs and toss around or whatever. I know we made a change for digital signs. Do we in our code? Do we prevent neon?
I cannot remember what the ultimate decision was.
And
I know it
maybe
was talked about, but I can't remember what you guys
I mean,
decided.
we could definitely exclude neon signs. The Vegas look like.
Yeah.
I don't believe we
I
allowed
don't think it's in there,
in the
but
code.
We could add
Double
that talk
check.
about because that's a very specific type of thing that's kind of annoying.
But that should be in the whole city's code. It's annoying everywhere.
Yes,
Not just in the waterfront overlay
It should
district.
be outlawed altogether.
Right. So I mean, I think
Except
having this
Vegas.
follow. I think having this follow that. This is too small of a town, I think, to have a signage code for the
This district as opposed to this district.
1.3
Exactly.
square miles. That's not the one waterfront overlay district, and then have a completely different signage code there. I would love to see us come up with a master plan, a town hall style with the city council, to have a master plan for what the town looks like. The waterfront overlay district shouldn't be the only place that has a theme. I mean, we're a tiny, tiny town. We can have, it can kind of be consistent. We can start running that stuff throughout all of the city stuff so that it has a consistent feel, because we're only talking about a fairly short space. That way, when people come here, they know that this is what they've come into that space. They've come into Port Richey, the whole thing.
Well, until you get to item number 3 on here, which is an annexation issue, we're going to roughly grow.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So it's-
100%.
But again, if we have a theme, then restaurants and things that are coming in, businesses that are coming in, they want to be part of that.
Right.
That helps guide them when they're designing. They're coming up with a new plan. Even a Chick-fil-A or a Starbucks, they will maintain their main icon, but they will alter the shape of the building to fit and conform to the feel of the village or area that they're coming into. A Starbucks in downtown Tampa is very ultra modern. The whole building is ultra modern. But then you go to an area where it is kind of more quaint, like go up north somewhere to a ski village. You're in a ski town. The Starbucks looks like a ski chalet. Like
Right.
they're perfectly okay with mapping the building to match the area. They're still going to have their sign up, but they're going to make it look like it belongs to the space.
Is there a way we can go ahead and incorporate architectural approval on these buildings? I mean, right now, all the approval is based on whether or not you're meeting the engineering statutes and whatever. Is there any way we can say that we have an architectural committee that to make sure there's?
Are we talking about for the overlay district itself?
Yeah, for
That would-
conformity.
Once again, that would be something we'd have to bring from point of order. We'd have to put it back where council would suggest that. That's in the actual original overlay district as well. There was some kind of discussion about how buildings had to look and conform.
The WD still has the fishing village theme in
Yeah.
it. So we talk about signs, it doesn't take away from what that theme is. The
Correct.
theme is still there. We haven't changed that. We're just saying that, the sign code itself, we're not doing anything special from the WOD perspective.
No, we're just trying to make the sign code consistent across the state
Consistent.
of Port Richey, all the county.
Now,
That's what this motion will do.
and I'll just give you a little more background information in our discussion. Obviously, we didn't, off the top of our head, see any reason that we would necessarily make a special exception for signs in the Waterfront Overlay District. If you guys can think of something that makes sense, obviously we would definitely be looking to possibly incorporate that. But I didn't really see, like, at least my perspective, is there anything really locked down in the WOD? Now, the theme, the sign would go along with whatever theme. It's Fishing Village theme. The sign would look like that as well. It just could be digital. It could be other things, the size, all those other things would be the same. They have to follow the theme. But if you guys think there's actually, like, you want the signs to be smaller or bigger at WOD, then you want to call that out. Like I said, our general sign code, we felt like we didn't need to do anything special for the WOD.
So the only thing that I can think of specific to the waterfront overlay would be if you're dealing with because LED signs are bright, digital signage is bright. It would be that it not point out across the water.
Yeah, there's lumen restrictions and how far it projects and stuff like that built into that.
Yeah, for sea turtles for pointing across
Right.
water at residences. I mean, even in the regular signage code, I'm assuming we have that it can't be obnoxiously bright and pointed at a residential space and things like that. That would be the only thing I would want to be concerned is making sure that as we do this, but that's going to be more of just overlay district in general, that we shouldn't have lights pointing out at the water.
We might want to, if we don't have it already, if we have signs on the water, that we make sure that those don't project out over the water. That is a good point.
I'm just
I
thinking
don't
about
think that was discussed at all, Nancy.
I'm just thinking about, you guys have seen the crazy signs and they're changing, they're digital and they're changing, and it's lighting up the entire street for as far as you can possibly see. And I'm thinking about right now when I have to go drive around the other side of the bayou to knock on somebody's door and go, man, I love the new dock lights. Can we point them back at your house? Because they're casting a shadow in my house.
Isn't that all addressed in the general sign language?
Well,
There's something in the sign code about the brightness, but I don't know that it was specific to waterfront versus, your neighbor's floodlight kind of thing. So
and that might be something that we just cover in general code we shouldn't have any lights signage that are pointing that are over a certain lumen that are pointed out of the water at any point.
You still want illumination though, so you can attract voters who want to come in at night to go to a restaurant and want to be able to get their way in there. Or people that want to take their boat and have to go back afterwards. You want to make sure you have enough illumination.
No, but downlighting on dockage and downlighting on markers and downlighting on things has been covered in every coastal town without broadcasting those lights out across the water for 150, 200 yards. It's one thing to have a marker light in a waterway. You expect that. But like if I'm coming up to dock at Hooters, the last thing I want is 100,000 candle power pointed my direction as I'm coming up on it, because then I can't see what I'm landing on. And then it just goes and goes and goes and goes across the water. So maybe that may not affect this as much as it is. That's something we need to be looking at just in our overall code in general. That anything dealing with the water.
Mike's point on Starbucks was a good one. That do we have any art on the facade or the image of the building structure itself? Not how the building's built, but what we want it to be presented in the front. If it's going to go ahead and keep a consistency.
So the short answer is yes.
Good.
because the overlay district does have specific guidelines for it. So yes, it would go from sort of.
It doesn't have any architectural. There's no, if someone brought us a set of plans that wants to do a Starbucks, we don't have an architectural board. And I know what you're referring to, where it has to be built a certain way to a fish village. And they all have to have this type of lighting and this type of material and this type of structure. We don't have that right now. It's very limited to what we have to that extent.
So it's just
Have a facade requirement of any sort or
Should we
anything
have?
like that.
I think when you read it, it gives the idea of what the city's looking for, but there's no requirements that you have to do those certain things. You can include those kinds of things in your code. It would require, obviously, first direction from council and a rewrite of the code.
So that's a good question. So you say we don't have teeth in that to make that happen.
I've not looked at that specifically, but I don't remember seeing. I just pulled
'Cause I
up
would
the
imagine
WOT
that-
real quick. I don't see anything specific about certain looks and architectural requirements. There are some municipalities that we
I think Veronica's right.
represent.
I don't believe there's any teeth attached to it at all. There was just a
You have
request.
to check the box.
This is what we're trying to accomplish. Here you go. Welcome to Waterfront.
When they came to planning and zoning or council with their plans and they didn't follow that theme, couldn't they reject it based on that? Because it does say it in there.
I don't think it.
Right, but they don't. If you're building a building down there and you're not asking for a variance of any kind, and you're just building a building within the extent of the code, we don't see it. I'm not going to see it.
Well, the WD specifically says fishing village theme, so I would think that they would have to have.
But it doesn't, like Mike said, it doesn't have to come before planning and zoning unless there is a specific reason for it.
It doesn't come to us unless they're asking for a variance of some kind. So if they're just building in the waterfront overlay district and they're following the code as it's already stated,
Right. Well, would the building official
the building
intervene in
official
that?
would have to go, I don't like that.
Yeah, engineering has nothing to do with it.
Yeah,
Can't-
but it has nothing to do with architect and what the facade looks like. That's not for him.
code, though. It's a
Well,
Not the
unless I'm reading the wrong section, I don't really even see that kind of language.
If there is,
It's just really nothing. It's the WOD is to improve the physical image of the waterfront community, protect environmental sensitivity. I don't think it has in it what you guys are thinking is in it.
Could we modify the
Yes.
planning and zoning board to also have architectural review to make sure something in that area meets?
You wouldn't necessarily have to. Well, that's kind of two things. First, you'd have to get. You need to make sure the code has what you would need in it to require those certain architectural things. That would be our first step, and that would be a direction from council for us to have that analysis and look at it. If that's not in there, it would require a code rewrite. Then it would be a determination if that's something the building official or the building department would do, or if you'd actually want a separate committee to make sure those boxes are checked. So there's different ways you could do it. I think the first step is discussing with council if they want stronger language within the WOD about an architectural look for a certain location. Because right now,
any new construction or remodeling of existing structures shall be in keeping with the character of the area and provisions of the overlay district. All existing shall be brought into compliance within 2 years. But it doesn't specify what that is.
It sounds like the same problem you have. No final direction.
But I think that's good enough. You guys are talking about a fishing village, not a shopping center. And that's, if you start making all these rules, then it's just going to look very uniform. And it's not going to look like a shopping village. It's going to look like
Here it is.
a mall or something.
It's under item J, appearance, Nancy. Item number 1, the appearance of any structure used for commercial purposes in the WD shall portray an old Florida nautical or fishing village theme.
I was in the wrong section.
So does that give us enough teeth we don't have to modify? Or is that pretty?
It depends on how much you want.
That's interpretation.
It is, and it depends on what you want to do.
How big an attorney
You know,
you
you're
want.
kind of, it doesn't give the building official anything, or
That doesn't give us any teeth
There's no
to
guidance.
say,
Well, that's what, so who makes that determination?
if I want modern looking houses up there, then who's to say that's not fishing village?
my advice would be if you truly want to control the architectural look of an area, you need to make your code say that.
Okay.
And I think we would need, then every single permit would have to go through some kind of ARB We'd have to have a committee of some kind. Someone would have to have what the city council dictated. We'd have to have a set
Which
of
is what-
standards.
Well, any development permit in the WOD would need to come before. the
Which is
planning
what the
zone.
original Waterfront River District committee was supposed to do. Remember that? We said we had that in our committee, and I think we met twice, and it just went away.
I don't see any reason why it can't be something that goes onto our agenda when someone we're not talking about 300 permits a year here. We're talking about 15 parcels. We're not talking about a lot of space.
No, if we could bring that back, if we could actually make that change. It comes before us. Obviously, a PUD with 5 acres or more, it's going to come before you.
Right.
But just if smaller stuff, if we probably do need to have that in there that it comes before planning.
Is the
zone.
board okay with having that additional responsibility put on you?
Well, really, they don't have a choice if council directs you to do it.
Good point.
You can ask.
Can we
because
request?
We do care.
Does anybody say that? Hell no, I don't want to deal with that.
No, but I think I would like to, if it's going to be our responsibility, I would like to have at least some form of guidance document from council.
Of course,
Yes.
100%.
I would like to know what it is you're asking us to look for and what things, maybe even some named exclusions.
My recommendations is that this needs to go to council as a discussion to see if you want to dictate something architectural, you need to put it somewhere. It can't be an idea in someone's head. Someone needs to be able to pick up our code and go, I'm interested in buying property. It's in the waterfront overlay district. What are my expectations there? Oh, I have to build to this certain criteria. They need to know that before they come in here with plans. So that needs to be rewritten. The code needs to be
And maybe we can stay vague enough that it lends itself to some degree of discussion as to what is fishing village or not, as opposed to, okay, it's got to have lap siding, it's got to be run as ship lap, we're not going to get that specific. That this is going to be an architectural, like an HOA level thing. I think we're talking about it's got to meet a theme. We need guidance from council. If this is the direction you guys want us to go, then we would need guidance from council as to some very specific hard no's, and then what we're looking for, so that we can, as a group, have a discussion of.
And
Yeah, really, it
even
really is
examples of
important and critical, because if Ryan is he's pushing to get a shovel in the ground by January. And my last conversation with him is he's going in front of the board in the next week or so with the drawings and what he's put together for the area. But he's talking about lining up Class A tenants, which you and I understand they have 1-2 years ahead before they get approval. And if we're going to start looking at Class A tenants like a Starbucks, like a whatever, we need something to say, hey, if you're going to put a Starbucks in here, we don't care what you do about the inside or how you build it out, but it's got to have this kind of image on the front or you can't have it. And if we don't do that, we're going to lose the Class A's and have to be stuck with a bunch of Class B's or C's.
So then we need guidance from council on what they would like us to look into and how far they would like us to take it.
I've made a note.
So
And I will.
facade, whether it's facade control or all the way down to architectural features and design elements.
Got it.
Neon signs only point at Faraz's house.
Just choice.
As long as they're target shaped.
I think neon signs look good in a fishing village. It's
right.
supposed to be is it a real fishing village or is it just a pretend one? I don't understand.
It says Old Nautical,
I just
Oh,
think,
now,
Old Florida Nautical.
Yeah.
I want to make sure there's a balance that they're allowed to use modern, resilient materials, not just old driftwood.
Right.
Well, it's the look, not the.
It says
Right.
the
And-
appearance, the
It's the
appearance
and
of
they still
any
have
structure
and they
used
still have to meet
for
all the regular building codes.
shall portray an old Florida nautical or fishing village.
It's okay. It's driftwood's fine. When we flood again, it'll go by my house. It's fine.
And then
So,
to Mr. Faraz, you made a point earlier, just so you know, there's a wayfinding project we're in the early stages of right now about, you're talking about tying the whole city together, kind of a theme. So we're definitely keeping that in mind as we choose a style. But right now, they've come and looked at the city and then they're coming back to us with ideas.
And I think once we have a theme that's got some direction and some visuals, then it'll be a lot easier for council to give us guidance as to how you want us to go about that as permits come across.
Nancy, is it? I know you don't want to ever have anything vague in there, and somewhat this is kind of vague. It's even in quotes. that Florida Nautical Village fishing theme is in quotes in the code. Is it something that you could just leave? You want that theme, and the decision makers are council. Could you get in trouble for that? I guess. Let's say somebody comes with us and we say, well, to the current body who were sitting there at the time, we don't think that's nautical enough.
Usually the legal analysis is that the criteria are the thing you're looking to do. The reasonable person needs to be able to look at objective statements, objective information, and understand it. So if it's usually like a nautical theme, okay, well, I might picture that it will have to have a boat on it. You might picture it has to have a fish on it. Like, what does that mean? Do you want to get it so detailed that you're dictating every single thing someone's doing? No. I mean, you want some, I would imagine, some differences, but you want a theme. So I think we just need to look at it, provide some guidance.
Reference.
Because what you don't want is you bring your issue before council. Oh, no, that's not nautical enough. She brings her issue. That's perfect. You're now mad because you think yours is just as nautical as hers. What was that decision based on? Oh, you like her, you don't like me. You know where these things go. So the more direction, guidance you
Just
can
the fact
give.
of having a theme there causes issues.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I don't know if maybe you can find something from another
Yep.
area that has a theme. I don't know if John's
Probably
Pass
John's
was.
Pass would be like, that's exactly the place I was thinking about. So I know they have a certain look. I am pretty they have a master plan that talks about that stuff. So I think theirs is quite detailed.
Stenhatchee does too, right?
But we can look at that.
Stenhatchee does too as well.
Okay.
There's
So-
very much old Florida.
Yeah. And Cedar Key.
Yep.
Might.
Cedar Key.
So
Park.
there'd be some places that we definitely could pull from to have that conversation. So we'll see if council wants us to do that.
Probably. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
All right. To
Okay.
put everybody back on track, just for the issue of time.
Too late.
All right. So, any other questions, discussion regarding the motion as it sits in front of you, or do I have a motion to approve to move on to the
Make
next?
a motion to approve the change in the waterfront district signage code to conform to the general city code.
Is that good? Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Fantastic. All right.
Thank you.
Moving on to item number 2 on our agenda. Three. Thank you.
I am going to pass that on to Mr. Butterfield.
Fantastic.
Thank you, man.
You're
Chair.
welcome.
You probably see it in the packets on your screens right now. There's two very similar, just a couple of words are different on each, but two pages. They would be a two-sided insert and then a draft letter. So we basically refined what we showed you last month based on your input, and our planner took a crack at it, and I think it presents well, but I wanted to make sure this seemed like something that you all thought would lead good places. And the second part of this would be, we talked about having let's say an open house, a business-friendly open house, or an annexation-themed open house, where we would have our staff leads like Veronica and the fire chief, the police chief here, and ask business owners that are already in the city that would like to have some company with other, they could actually testament what a great thing it is to be part of the city, and then prospective business owners and homeowners. And I just love the feedback on, do you think we should focus on the businesses first or homeowners too? And what sort of gathering? I know the holidays are coming. What time of year would be the best time to have an open house like that? So that's really all I had was a refinement on what we bounced off you rough last time and asked those questions.
I think focusing on the business would be the first step.
We go right up Ridge Road and right up 19 and fill in a lot of blanks.
And on Grand, you've still got restaurants and such right on. Also Grand that I think a couple of those are not within our city.
All
is it?
Grand is ours.
All that's okay.
Is it? Okay.
Until it meets 19, Newport Richie. It's all the way ours. Yeah.
So on the flyer, we try not to promise we're lowering your taxes because it could be a net lower for some folks and might be a net higher for others. But we want to just highlight the benefits that we could foresee for residents and businesses.
Lower their water costs though, right?
The water would cost less. 25% less, I think it is, if they're a city customer.
Yeah.
So that can be substantial, especially for businesses.
I commend your team. I think it's exactly what we discussed. So it's a great flyer way to start for sure.
Okay.
To see if we get some kind of information. I don't know that from our perspective as far as timing is concerned that we can have for businesses we can have a kind of open house before the holidays. Thoughts?
We're trying to do this methodically. We want to get things done, but we don't want to rush. And
Right.
so I was thinking January.
I would think January, February at the latest, right?
Give us time to really hone our message and get the word out and get some buzz about it. So.
Maybe interesting to send it out. Send it out, and then maybe just some touch points. Even have some of the board members go and meet some of the business owners and say, "Hey, we really like you to be there in January. I know you guys are really busy. This because of the holidays. That's why we pushed it out this time. I mean, I'll go knock on doors. I have no problem. So this needs to happen.
Well, we'll look for a date in January, and feel free that we've kind of got your blessing to send one of these flyers out. And we'll take one more look at the letter and make sure it says everything we want it to say, and then we can send out a follow-on letter about the get-together.
How about giving them two options? Let's do one in the afternoon and then one at 5:30 or 6, because you got a lot of business people that are working and they're running their small business. They're not going to be able to take off. And then you've got others from some of the larger groups that might say, come on, let's get this over with. I don't want to go. I want to get off.
Yeah, we could do two.
I think even a third option where they do by appointment as well. We come to you come to the city, schedule an appointment, and
Could you run this in two steps? Send a letter out that's less specific, that explains that we're going to have an open house to discuss this before you send out that we would like to get your property. We would like to have you jump in. Like maybe we send out something that's similar letter, send the flyers that says we're looking at annexing property. The city's looking. The city of Port Richey's looking at growth. One avenue to that is annexation of properties that are keyholed in, and explain some, just a very brief letter that says this is what we're thinking, and then send the flyer along with that, and talk about the open house before you send you're one of the ones that we're thinking about kind of letter out. And that way, because this seems more like you've already been talking about me and I don't know.
Okay.
As opposed to maybe a bigger blast that says, hey, January, we're going to have after the holidays, we're going to talk about growing. And this is one of the ways we're talking about growing.
I would make a case to say we're growing, we want to grow. I'd approach them that, hey, we're here. We'd like to offer some assistance, unlock the benefits.
This is how we can help.
Be a part. Growth would happen if they actually come in, right?
Right. We're going to solve their issues because they get slow
We're trying to help them.
response time to
And
the
the
sheriff's
sign
office.
code is another thing you can actually. I don't know if you got that in. I haven't seen this yet, but we're really focused on making things business friendly from a sign perspective and all that, and that can actually help them get outside the county's rules and come to the city's rules, where we're a little more lenient in some areas. Right?
No, I didn't think about the sign.
It's funny. I'm looking at the map, and there's even one of a property that I'm working on from a commercial standpoint that one of our city residents to purchase, and it's not in there. And the first thing he wants it to be in the city. And I'm looking at the map like, oh, I always thought Nico's was in the city. It's right on the border. It's right there.
I'm looking for property for my company, and I'm very specifically. I would rather have something in the city. I would rather have something, So my restraints on what I'm looking for limits me, because I don't want something that's in Newport Richey. I don't want something that's in the county. I want something that's here. So I see the benefits. I think we all see the benefits there. But I'm just thinking.
I do like the softer approach. A little kind of ease them a little bit. We're going to deal with it in January. So we can send 2 letters out that way.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
I wanted to comment on one thing.
Yeah.
I was reading the comparisons, and she did change it as far as when I mentioned last time that the county roads are assessed for residences, and then the city, it's included. And I don't think that's specified enough in there. It says regular road repairs, sidewalks, and stormwater upkeep by the city for City of Port Richey, and then for the county, county maintains main roads, local street upkeep may be delayed. I would also add and assessed on there because
Sure.
that is a big, I mean, water,
That's
you're
huge.
talking hundreds of dollars, maybe a difference, maybe even only $25. But the assessment of the roads is thousands. And
true.
I think that should be a little bit more
I can add that.
out there.
Under the public roads, public works and road maintenance.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay, so after maybe
After-
delayed and assessed.
Correct.
maybe delayed and assessed.
Okay.
I mean, then maybe they'll change the rules and they won't assess. So at least you'll be protected that way because it says maybe.
Well, currently they are assessing.
Yeah.
They like their assessments.
Yeah, they just started that recently too, so
They like their assessments.
probably not going back.
No, they've been assessing roads for
Well, they did something
as long as
different.
I've been here.
Well, they did something different where they
Because I have a lot up in rental houses up in Embassy.
well, maybe they weren't
that's-
assessing everybody, but now they assess everybody.
Yeah.
That's what it is. They just made a change a couple of years ago. Newport did the same thing. They assess for
Yeah.
roads.
So why? Okay, so if I understand correctly, so your suggestion is to send a letter. How about sending a letter about the open house and sending them this information along with it? So we're not sending out 2 mail outs. We're sending out 1 and putting all the information. We could create a flyer for a workshop, maybe set up 2 or 3 different times throughout, maybe 2 different days that week or do something like that.
How far are we sending this letter? I mean, how far are we sending this letter? Is it going all the way to Stone Road or all the way up to Embassy Boulevard on the 19 corridor, as far as those property owners are concerned?
I think you probably figure out a manageable number,
Sure.
not too large, right? So we can get a feel of how receptive they are. We might have an open house, nobody show up, right?
Well, we have to be careful that we're not doing this spot annexation as well. So we have to be kind of careful now.
Yeah.
Well, no,
we have
you
to be-
probably quarter mile, half mile.
Yeah,
That
I
is
wouldn't go any more than probably half a mile at this time and then see what we can get. We don't want enclaves and all that. We
Sure.
discussed that the last time. And if we start bringing in little by little, and then we start hitting another half a mile and,
Okay.
and start going. So it's got to be in parts, small pieces.
You draw that radius and kind of do a count,
Yeah.
just kind of see what
Yeah.
you pick up.
Where we're at, yeah.
And I would probably include, especially right here behind City Hall, these little enclave pockets that we
I
have.
think we picked them. So Derek did a spreadsheet, and I believe there could have been maybe between 20 and 30 addresses so far that, with the enclave, that we want to hit first.
Right.
And then go from there. Once they annex in, then we have more to pick from, and then we can go to the next group. And
Well, so do
because
you,
you don't want to start picking and choosing, and then somebody up on Stone Road wants to be in, but the person off of here, off of Springer, doesn't want to be in,
Correct.
and then it just throws off our whole
Well,
system.
Nancy, have you looked into the rules on the process? If you select an area, let's say we did a half mile radius or whatever, and 51% of the folks in that half mile radius are good from a commercial standpoint, we should be able to take the whole half mile radius.
I did look at them before our last conversation. I did not relook at them before today, but there was a number that if it's not voluntary, if they voluntarily come in, that's one thing. If you want to say
Yes, that's if we're looking at the math when we're doing that area, once we get that threshold, even if the other ones don't want it, they come
It's
in.
forced annexation. I get it. Yeah.
I think when Matt was looking into this, from what he told us, was that if it's an enclave area, we don't even need your permission to bring you in because you're already surrounded by the city. So when you're talking about the enclaves, because he even talked to the county manager and asked if there was going to be an objection if we went ahead and annexed these enclaves. And the county said, no, we have no problem because we can't service them as it is.
Right.
So I don't know that we even have to ask these people if we want to do that legally. I think
Yeah,
from
I don't know.
what Matt said, we
But
can
if you get
just
if you
move
get a
forward.
majority of the people, right? If you get 50% of the people that are wanting to, then probably go through that approach and then
Commercial. The other way,
on the commercial
Hey,
side.
residential needs
Yeah.
to be, I
Yeah.
think there was something 10 or less, I'm not still there now, but
Yeah.
that's why that goes to vote. So, and it would be, there is still some forced annexation there if it's over.
a certain percentage.
So what about sending this very specific letter to the properties that you've already identified that are the ones that we want to go after first.
Well, that's
And
what
then
we were gonna
send-
start with.
And then we're going to have an open house to talk about annexation out to the broader half-mile, radius around, along the perimeter right now, to say, hey, these are all the areas that we're looking at voluntary annexation. But then send the very specific thing. They get that letter that says, hey, we're going to have an open house, but they also get the specific, and you're one of these areas. You're tucked into an enclave space that's definitely, there's huge benefits to you becoming part of this. I like what you've done. I just think we could I don't know that everybody needs to get this. I don't think the person that's all the way up at the outside fringe edge of that half mile needs to get this letter and then think that they want to jump in and they're the only one, and then they're so far away that it's not really going to happen. Because
Right, but if you're targeting that area, they could be very crucial in achieving that 50%.
right.
100%.
Now, this letter is written basically to homeowners. Do we have a separate letter for the commercial entities we're talking about? Are you using the exact same verbiage on the commercial that
That's the
you are?
feedback
on
I was looking
homeowners?
for. If you
No.
think we should have slightly different for business and homeowner, I'm sure.
Yeah. City manager has asked me to create a commercial one. We were just focusing on, does this look good? Is this something that you want to tweak? Do you want to see something different before? I mean, your commercial is going to be somewhat similar to it. There's going to be some differences, not a whole lot, but we're not trying to reinvent something for commercial. But
Your residential is going to be a whole
geared
other unique
towards-
process. And
yeah,
like I said,
geared towards it.
focus on the commercial.
Yeah.
And let's say we start to grow up 19, right? And then you start targeting the residential areas, subdivisions or whatever, individually, take them to vote. And then do it that way. But really, commercial is the easiest path to getting somewhere. And once you start to grow up that way, you start targeting residential around it, because we're already kind of servicing right down the street. So.
What about when we're talking these larger apartment complexes? The only
Less
permission we need
is
is
part of
from,
that's a commercial. That's part of the commercial.
Correct.
because all we need is the
Commercial.
permission from the property owner, not the residents that
correct.
are within there.
Right.
So
Okay. Any other discussion regarding what the city has worked on so far?
I have a weird question.
Ask away. Today is your day for
I
weird
just think
questions.
it's something really odd. I've never knew. I thought I knew everything about this city, but on page 14, there's this little piece of land. It looks like it's out on an island, lined in blue. That's part of the city.
Off the bridge?
It's
outside.
yeah, it's an island.
Across from Warner Boys.
Her voice. Well, yeah, off of
All the way to the left.
yeah.
At Cow Key,
Yeah.
What is that?
part of Cow Key, I think.
I'd have to look.
Do you guys see it?
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever noticed that
Top
before?
No.
that we have city land that's an
I
island.
just assumed everything out there was.
I got the same on Ridge
I thought
Road. If you
Durning was part of the
notice
city too.
this little
Well, that's not.
piece.
That's not Durning.
south
That's
of-
north
yeah,
of Durning. That's.
No, that's not dirty.
But
everything in between it is
No,
not.
it's
further south.
Right
Is
here.
Dirty out in the city?
What is
No.
that?
Veronica?
That's an island.
Yeah. Really? I thought it was. Interesting.
See?
There must be a house there. Then.
There's no house there.
I always thought Dirty Key was part of the city.
That's not Dirty
I thought it
Key.
was too.
No, I'm saying you
It's
can't
not
see
on the map.
Dirty on this.
Oh,
place.
yeah.
Yeah. But I always thought Dirty was part of the city property.
Yeah, it's named after John Durney, the city
No, that's Cow Key.
mayor.
In the picture, that's Cow Key.
Cow Key?
Cow Key.
Cow Key, right off of Pressure.
Oh, yeah.
And our city owns that?
I tried it around.
You got South Cow.
700,000 times.
We only own part of it. We don't own all of it.
Right there.
All the little, like,
We're gonna put a little park on one side of it.
Pasco County.
One park bench is all we have room for, Lori. That's it. That's all you
None of
get.
it's, but it's all mangrove according to the picture. So there's nothing dry there anyway. I mean, I don't know why.
So there's no cows there.
There's no,
It's just a
there
clear.
might be a cow stuck in the middle of it.
Poor cow.
Okay.
Sheep more
Do we
like
need
a
a
llama.
motion for that, or there's
No, that was just direction.
just
for them.
direction
Yeah.
for this guy? Perfect. All right. Any other discussions, conversation, or I want to entertain any other motions? The one that says they can go back to work and we can all go back to work.
I move we adjourn.
Do I have a second? Okay, thank you. All in favor? Aye. Thank you, guys.
Poor Miss Nancy got more work to do out of it.